So Sunday Sabbatarianism was quite popular. I'd say it came down from Catholics. And if you just pay attention and you listen to different people, you'll catch people calling Sunday the Sabbath. So don't give me your little, we didn't change the Sabbath. We just call it the Sabbath because we misspeak all the time. And all the these, Presbyterians do it, Catholics do it, Orthodox have done it. I've seen do it. Baptists I've seen do it. Okay. The people want to deny it today. Why? Why don't you don't even know why you keep Sunday and you end up calling it Sabbath, and then somebody puts you on the spot and it's like, hey, it's not. Oh, wait a minute. I don't have a biblical argument. Let me just throw a bunch of poop at the wall and see what sticks. And by the time I go through all my excuses, the first one I gave makes no sense to the excuse I gave. Okay, just admit that you don't know why you keep Sunday and stop making up excuses and admit it. Change your mind. Agree with me. You've just inherited a false thing. Do you want to fall? Are you sold to scripture? This is my appeal. Like most Sunday Sabbatarians, like I can appreciate the principles for the law that you want to uphold, but if the church fathers jumped off a bridge, would you follow them? Also, if Martin Luther didn't want to leave the church but reform it, and then it didn't reform, and then he split off, and you hold that sort of perspective, the reality is the church slowly changed the Sabbath to Sunday. It's recorded in history, as we can see it happen. And clinging to this idea that, well, kind of maybe there's Sunday in the Bible, and well, maybe, or it doesn't really matter, but we're going to uphold the principles in our confessions, like the Augsburg Confession or the London Baptist Confession or the 1689 confessions. It's like, read those. They all uphold my view of the law, which includes the Sabbath, because it has to, or you're inconsistent and just totally random. Wasn't a problem until somebody pointed it out, like Adventists. Now people are confused and people make stuff up and they just throw stuff out that they've heard. They're just pathetic. It's sickening. And like the defense mechanism is Adventists are heretics and Adventists are a cult. Just dismiss it because their arguments make us look foolish. So we're going to be dishonest and malign them, essentially, is what's going on. It's really pathetic. Two, here's my other thing. Since most of you are conservative, I'm just being really honest with you. This is what I think. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like to me. Also, since mostly of you guys are conservative and you appeal to Genesis about marriage, regarding how God set it up, read your own commentaries, okay, especially the Calvinists out there. Read Jameson, Fawcett, Brown. There's a few sort of liberal-ish older commentaries that will sort of doubt the Sabbath was instituted at creation. But the logical, obvious thing is, the fact that it's called, it set us, is holiness setting something apart? The word sanctifies comes from sanction. It means to sanctify, make holy. The context is men being made in the image of God. And later we find out that clearly God is giving us a pattern. We clearly know historically that the 7th week had to have been instituted by God if the Bible is true. And if it was instituted by God, Adam would have to be told what God did on the previous days before he creates man. Men have a 7-day Sabbath sort of weekly cycle, which has nothing to do with nature, that you would never come up with on your own. So if the Bible's true, and we have records in Babylonian and Akkadian writings that they had a 7-day week practically 1,000 years before Moses wrote Genesis, and they have a 7-day week, then either the Bible stole that idea from the pagans and pretended like God made it, or God sure treats it like he made it and he set that pattern because of the harsh penalties for breaking it, including the fact that somebody broke it and is the first person to be put to death for breaking the law. Second, it's the origin story for why the Jews have tassels that they wear to remind them to keep the Lord's commandments. It's intrinsically tied to like every sort of pattern. There's Sabbath rests, there's secondary Sabbaths that are added towards the, it's the center of the 10 Commandments, and it's instituted at creation as a pattern for man, which God had to have told them if the Bible's true. And if the Sabbath instituted before there's sin in the world, then it's an institution that's meant to be in a world without sin. All the sorts of things of the law that were pointing to the Messiah are things that were how he deals with sin. And removing things that were given to man in a world that's perfect is part of a design protocol, a design law by God for the benefit of man, which Jesus supports and defends it against made up laws by the Pharisees, doesn't do away with it, and declares himself Lord of it, which means he's the deity that gave it to man for his benefit, and he claims to be Lord of it. And you call Sunday Lord's Day, but you didn't change the Sabbath. And you're not quite sure if you want to argue it was instituted at the beginning or not. Well, let me tell you, you're being dishonest, whether you realize it or not. And I'm rebuking you to stop doing that. Thank you. And by the way, stop bitching about gay marriage and that God made it that way at the beginning if you're going to disregard the Sabbath. Because you don't like gay marriage, I don't like your gay Sabbath. So either get consistent or knock it off. That's my opinion. That's what I feel about it. That's how I really feel about it. I say stop appealing to creation for God's design ordinance if you're not going to uphold the Sabbath, because it makes you a hypocrite. They're still holding to marriage. If you want to hold to Sunday, then they can hold to gay marriage. You can modify what God said. They can modify what God said. You weren't born with your gay Sabbath. A lot of people seem to be born gay. So who are you to disregard one and not the other?